Father David here. It's Sunday and time for your weekly sermon. And today's gospel lesson is that famous passage from St. Luke where Jesus gives us blessings and woes. Blessings on the poor and the marginalized and the outcast, woes on the rich and the powerful and the self-satisfied. Today's sermon is entitled Another Way. Well, here we are as a new administration continues its shock and awe campaign to impose the radical Project 2025 on the nation. A federal workforce that in 1975 numbered 2.8 million people to serve a population of 216 million people now numbers only 2.3 million people to serve a population of about 344 million. And that's the workforce that President Musk wants to decimate. To what end? Perhaps to undo what few protections remain for ordinary folks against the immense power and wealth of corporations and the uber rich. Perhaps to take away the already rickety social safety net so that those in the middle and those on the bottom become so preoccupied with mere survival that the thought of protest or objection is wiped out. What is most obvious is that the values of this world, power, celebrity, and money, are being hoisted and honored as supposed divine values. And today's gospel lesson is here to tell us all, not so fast, which is the theme that Jesus takes up when he sits with his disciples, speaking to them on the level, a reference not only to the ground around them, but to the truth about what he's saying. He levels with them about what brings blessings and what brings woes in this life. And he does so by flipping our usual narrative that says the rich are in good shape and the poor are cursed by God. According to Jesus, the opposite is true. Verna Dozier says that the cross is not only a symbol, it's the sign of the collision between the kingdom of God and the kingdoms of this world. The cross is what happens when the world's values collide with God's values. The world, as if on autopilot, immediately responds with violence, anger, and death. And that's the collision that Jesus puts in motion this morning as he upends what we all believe to be true and right and proper. Of course, the rich are blessed by God. Of course, financial success is the primary goal in life. Of course, those who won't, can't, or don't make it in this dog-eat-dog world only have themselves to blame. Why else do 9 out of 10 people think that the quote, "God helps those who help themselves," is straight from the Bible? But it's not the Bible. It's Ben Franklin. Jesus offers another way. Because while we so often are used to Jesus sitting with the down and out, today's lesson is not directed to such folks. It's actually directed to the self-sufficient, to the well-off, to the people like you and me, to we who have made our way in the world, we who know how to play the game, and who very often come out on top. We know that's the case because it's Luke's gospel that we hear this lesson from. Luke's community, his early comrades in following Jesus, were, the scholars tell us, made up mostly of wealthy people. Luke was a doctor, and at the beginning of the gospel, he is writing to the most exalted Theophilus, so that you may recognize the reliability of the accounts you have been taught. And that's why, after teaching and healing the vast crowds that came out to see him, he looked up at his disciples and said, "Blessed are you." He's not talking to the crowds, but to his closest followers. He's talking to exalted Theophilus. He's talking to us. In this disturbing litany of blessings and woes, Jesus is not only interested in reversing who and what we usually think of as blessed and cursed, he's cajoling us, especially those of us who are well off, we who tend to be on the winning side of society, to see life through the eyes of the other, particularly the other who is in pain, the other who is just scraping by, the other who, without Jesus pointing her out, we might just scurry past on the sidewalk. Our world today seems to be obsessed with highlighting our differences, whether it's about politics, race, culture, creed, or language. But Jesus is trying to help us find common ground. It's another reason that he gives this sermon today on the level place, because on the level place, we're all the same. And yet, finding common ground requires self-awareness. It requires self-examination, and it requires a willingness to let go. Self-awareness, self-examination, and willingness to let go allows us to be mindful of that persistent tendency in human nature to see the world not through the eyes of one another, but through the limited gaze of our own eyes. Eyes whose sight is too often restricted by blinders of one sort or another, blinders of ego, ethnicity, or even ethics. Jesus urges us to recognize that true faith is as close to and yet as different from presumption, as virtue is as close to yet as different from hypocrisy. So says Marilynne Robinson, meaning that while faith beckons us to walk on water, presumption says to God, "Pay up, you owe me." That while virtue is a way of living life within the flow of all that is, which is its own reward, hypocrisy is born out of my obsessions with how other people see me. And so when I toot my own horn or try to set myself apart to become a standalone being in a standalone world, I succeed only in diminishing the pure majesty of what it is to be human. Creatures made in the image and likeness of God. Creatures not made for isolation, but for community, not for self-sufficiency, but for unity. We forget such things to our own peril, as the current demonization of trans folks and migrants and Capitol Police demonstrate, because we are made for so much more. As one fellow observed a long time ago, it's a most astonishing mystery to see heaven and earth married together in every human being, the dust of the ground and an immortal spirit clasping each other with such dear embrace and tender love. What dear affection is found between them, while breath sweetly links them. Seeing the world through the eyes of the other allows us to see in each other the very image of God. So let's not be fooled by the current political winds. Let's take heart in the truth that Jesus gives us today on the level. Let's speak up and out against those who would diminish our fellow human beings and those who persist in beating the drums of power, wealth, and celebrity. Let's stay true to our faith and respond with love and justice and compassion by reaffirming the gospel of Jesus Christ. that the goal of humanity is unity, unity with one another, and ultimately unity with God. Therefore, anything and everything that divides us, separates us, or attempts to diminish us in any way is an affront to God and to our destiny. Let's get busy on a daily basis with the task of our faith, creating community, expressing love, demanding justice. And when we do, the gate of heaven opens before our eyes, not when we've closed them for the last time in death, but right now, today, in this life. May we, all of us, continue each and every day to seek out God's kingdom right before our eyes. God bless you all.